Can you folks hear us okay? Just doing a check
Oh,
quick online.
I'm so sorry. You have
Hey,
to
is that your bag?
No.
No. It's not your bag?
This one?
Oh, Sharon.
Okay, here
That
you
might
go.
be Sharon's bag.
I'm sorry.
Can you not hear us?
This is your bag. Your bag?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with us. I apologize for my tardiness.
Hold on, I'm just waiting on sound.
Okay.
Hey folks, can you hear us?
We can hear
Yeah,
you
we
on
can hear you.
Zoom.
Okay. Perfect.
Checking YouTube now, Mala.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Okay. Aloha mai kako. My name is Don Chang. I am the co-chair of the Hawaii Invasive Species Council, along with co-chair Director Chair Hurd. This is March 20th meeting, 2025 meeting of the council, and it is 11:14. I'm going to go over some public meeting protocols before we start with our agenda items. We are holding this meeting as a hybrid meeting. Some of us are in person in the Kalanimoku Building Boardroom in Honolulu, but we are also holding this meeting remotely via Zoom, and it can be watched live on YouTube. For those that have signed up to testify via Zoom, you will be led into the meeting room on the item you wish to testify on, and we do have a rather short agenda today. When you enter, please keep your camera off and microphone muted until the commission calls upon you for public testimony. We ask that members of the public testifying on agenda items limit your testimony to 3 minutes so that we can get to everyone. And please remember not to use the chat for any comments because that presents a sunshine law issue. People may also testify via telephone, and I think they may contact our council staff if you wish to do so. The board may go into executive session pursuant to HRS 92-5, subparagraph A, subparagraph 4 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes in order to consult with its attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. I am now going to call the first agenda item, which is the introduction of council members. So I'm going to take a roll call, and to facilitate this, I will call your name, and if you can just say whether you're present. Chair Hurd? Present. I have Kathy Ho.
Present.
Okay. I have Dean Greenwald,
Present.
University of Hawaii. I have representing Tibet, Mary Alice Evans.
Present.
Thank you. And then I have representing Department of Transportation, Dexter Kishida.
Present.
So these are the voting members. The legislative members of the committee, the council includes, let's see, do I have a representative from President Kochi? Okay, believe Speaker Nakamura's representative is Representative Martin. Is she here? No, okay. I see Representative Kahaloa.
Aloha.
Oh, mahalo, thank you for being here. Do I have a representative from Senator Gabbard? No. Do I have a representative from Senator Inouye? Is that Monique?
Yes, that's one.
Monique. Thank you, Monique, for being here. Do I have Representative Evslin? Senator Lee? Rep. Cochran? Rep. Lowen? All right. So I have the full voting council members present, though. Thank you very much. Our staff include Chelsea Arnott, Coordinating Director, as well as I see Rob Hoff is here today, and our Deputy Attorney General for today, who is Danica Swenson. Thank you. So with that, let's proceed with our first agenda item. It's number 3, approval of minutes of November 14th, 2024. Board members or council members, do you have any questions or comments on the draft minutes? Okay. Seeing none, is there any public comments on item 3 of the agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Council members, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you very much. A motion has been moved. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Motion has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 14, 2024. Since this is the first vote of the council for today, let's do a roll call vote, Chelsea. Okay, we'll start. Dexter?
Aye.
Okay, Mary Alice?
Aye.
Chair Hurd?
Aye.
Okay, Chair Chang, aye. Kathy Ho?
Aye.
Dean Greenwald? Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously with 5 votes. Let's now move on to the next agenda item, which is really the heart of this meeting. It is to discuss Senate Bill 1100 SD2, House Bill 427, House Draft 2. And I am going to ask Chelsea to do a brief status update on that to get us started before the discussion.
Thank you, chairs,
Thank you.
council members, Chelsea Arnott, program support staff for the Hawaii Invasive Species Council. I'll provide an overview of the 2 biosecurity bills that were introduced with adoption, starting with Senate Bill 1100. This is just an overview of what the original bill had in it. There's been quite a few substantial changes to the bill, but I'll start with an overview of the original bill's intent and then go through a status update and kind of what are the next steps for these measures moving forward. So overview, this bill has a few different parts, renaming the Department of Agriculture as the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, establishes a deputy chairperson of biosecurity, requires the department to establish an emergency response team to respond to biosecurity events, and authorizes the department to establish transitional facilities, requires Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs to license and train biosecurity inspectors, requires inspection of various items transported indoor island, increases penalties for illegally transporting plants, animals, and microorganisms. The next part requires the department to establish government industry agreements to detect and respond to unwanted organisms in Hawaii, and authorizes pest management plans to address, contain, or eradicate pests. The next part authorizes the department to adopt rules to establish and enforce the plant care component program, and authorizes the department to assess administrative penalties for the enforcement of the program and appropriates funds. And another part of this Senate bill, which is what is up for discussion with the council, is the transfer of the Hawaii Invasive Species Council to the Department of Agriculture. So talking about the transfer of HISC to Department of Agriculture, these are the different sections and the language that was in the original bill. There's 3 different sections where it's mentioned. It's in one part where there's the creation of the deputy chairperson, and that deputy chairperson of biosecurity, the language is the department, a deputy chairperson for biosecurity, and this chairperson of biosecurity oversees all the state's biosecurity initiatives, and then goes on to list the chapters. You can see 142, 150-A, and 194. 194 is our HISC Hawaii revised statute. The other section is basically taking the Hawaii revised statute 194-2 and just replacing the administration, Xing out, oh, sorry, that's the next one, apologies. So it would cross out Department of Land and Natural Resources as the administrating body, replacing it with Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. And then the last part is all rights, powers, functions, and duties of the Invasive Species Council are transferred from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. So that was the language in the initial bill that was introduced. Now I'll go into a status update for that. Currently, it's Senate Bill 1100 SD2 HD1. It's crossed over from the Senate. It's now in the House. The committees assigned to it are Agriculture and Food Systems, Consumer Protection and Commerce, and Finance. The last hearing was Consumer Protection and Commerce, that passed with amendments on 319. And I'll get into those amendments unless my brain explodes, like with thinking about this right now. And so just relating back to the past version, I went through the language, so it did include the language that would move the administration of the Hawaiian Invasive Species Council to the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity and have the deputy chairperson of biosecurity overseeing the HISC. The current version, which is the amendments that were passed on 319 by the Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce, it basically took all the language out and replaced it with House Bill 427, the version of House Draft 2. That bill, which I'll go over next, does not include any language that would move the HISC to the Department of Agriculture. So as this bill stands currently, we do not have any language in the current measure that would move HISC to DOA or have anything really with the HISC. Next steps for this bill are it needs to be scheduled for the finance hearing. If it passes through finance, then it will go into conference for discussion.
Is there a hearing date scheduled?
Not yet.
Okay.
And last I checked, there wasn't even the committee report to
Okay.
confirm like the actual language from that last hearing.
All right.
I'm looking at Stephanie. She's more on it than I am.
Chelsea, just a quick comment, since today is the deadline for lateral bills. The bill will get filed today with the revisions at some point, and then it will be on the floor to pass second reading, third reading tomorrow on the floor of the House, and then it's able to go to the Finance Committee for a hearing in its final stage before conference. So it's moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I'll check all Okay, so the next slides are focused on House Bill 427. I can pause here if there's any questions in the council.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. These fantastically engaging slides. Okay, so with House Bill 427, it is the House version of a biosecurity bill. Don't say it's a companion. The language is not exactly the same compared to SB 1100 and House Bill 427. It's a shorter measure. The Senate Bill 1100 is around 80 pages, and this House Draft 427 is around 40 pages. But it does have some of the key components that are reflected in SB 1100, which is the renaming of the Department of Agriculture as the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, establishes a deputy chairperson for biosecurity, and renames the Plant and Animal Declaration Form the Biosecurity Form. And it authorizes the Department of Agriculture with approval from the governor to declare a biosecurity emergency. So those are some of the key components from that bill. Again, the original form of this bill didn't have any language that would move the HISC to the Department of Agriculture. So the status thus far, similar to SB 1100, it started in the House and now it's crossed over to the Senate. They just had the triple committee hearing with Agriculture, Environment, these gonna get me transportation. I forget what the CA stands for.
Consumer protection.
Thank you.
Protection.
I'm sorry, no,
Oh, no.
culture and arts.
Culture and arts, okay, don't let the senator leave me. Consumer protection and commerce, so that passed with amendments on the 318 hearing. And so again, just the past version, it did not include language that would move the HISC. It did include language that was removed early on, that the HISC report to the chairperson during a biosecurity emergency. And the language is more, the chairperson will work within the forum of the Hawaiian Invasive Species Council, since she co-chairs the Hawaiian Invasive Species Council at this time. The current version, what we're working with right now, so it was amended to replace HB 427 with Senate Bill 1100, Senate Draft 2. This is gonna make your head spin, because it made mine. And so Senate Draft 2 is the version that still had language of moving HISC to the Department of Agriculture. But in addition to that amendment, they also made the amendment that they would take the approved recommendations from the CGAT's testimony that was heard during the Agricultural and Food Systems hearing. And those recommendations within the CGAT's testimony included the removal of language to move HISC to DOA. So, summary, this bill as stands doesn't move HISC to Department of Agriculture. Next steps for this bill are to be scheduled for the Ways and Means hearing, with floor sessions in the judiciary, and then if passes, to conference. And Chair Kalaloa, you could
Yeah.
correct me of that series and what happens next.
Okay. Rep. Kahalo, did you have any different updates on either of the bills?
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea, for sharing kind of the comparison of both measures and the status of where the bills go. I think that's a pretty accurate update. I know as of last night, we couldn't see the written amendments yet for HB 427, but the deadline for them to be able to publish that and it be live for us to like look at and confirm is also today, as it is lateral deadline in the Senate, and then they will likely vote on their version on the Senate floor on Friday as well. So, yeah, I guess their deadline's at 4 today. Ours is at 9 o'clock this evening. So by tonight, every bill should be in its final form and published online for everyone to see. I think we're making progress. Again, they aren't companion measures exactly. So hopefully the goal is that both bills do get to conference so we can have fruitful discussion on both. So any recommendations that this body has or would like to, if you can make statements on what you guys prefer to see, will only help us in conference. And again, for everyone that has sent testimony with comments, with support, with opposition, we just are really grateful and really appreciate it. It just helps make the discussion more fruitful as we get to hopefully a decision on what statutory changes we'd like to see with biosecurity. I believe strongly it is the House and Senate's position to also put appropriation. They are in both bills, but in what the final form looks like will still be under discussion, whether we take the governor's recommendations in the initial budget or different things get negotiated as well at the final stages of the budget. Again, we do have to acknowledge federal funding potential deficits, and will that impact a strong biosecurity budget potentially? So there's kind of these two major pieces, at least I would say. Myself being able to sit as the chair of Agriculture and Food Systems in the House is to come to agreement on some form of statutory updates to the biosecurity statutes, hopefully with consensus from the Senate. And then the other opportunity is, what does it look like to fund a comprehensive funding proposal for all those that work in biosecurity, including Department of Agriculture as the lead. But it's my full intention that we are able to fund all the good work in biosecurity across the state and with all the other state divisions and entities that work on biosecurity. That's the only way we can really make a big effort with all of the things that we're managing with pests on the ground right now. So I'll just stop there, and I hope I do have to run to a committee hearing. Claire is here, so if you guys have
Okay.
any questions, please send them my way. But thank you guys for meeting and discussing these both important measures today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rep. Kahaloa. Appreciate you being here and your summary. So before we get into discussion, I did want to, the basis for this meeting, it was very last minute. It really was to provide an opportunity for the council to weigh in on the discussions of the two bills. Up until this point, Chelsea has been drafting testimony and sending it to the co-chairs. And then we've been making comments. But I think we're at the point now where I think we both felt that it was appropriate to bring this back to the full council to make sure that our testimony is reflective of the council and to provide the council an opportunity to have this discussion. So that's why sort of in the middle of session, we're having this meeting. But I think this is, there's great movement. And I think as Rep. Kahaloa indicated, I think there is desire by both the House and the Senate to develop a comprehensive biosecurity bill. I don't think any of us disagree with that. I think there is, so I think that the time may be right now to move this effort forward. I guess, so we're wanting to get feedback from the entire committee, council, and members of the public who want to weigh into this discussion as well, as we move forward on probably our final testimony as it goes to the final committees for hearing. So with that being said, we are open for discussion by the council, and then I'm going to provide the public an opportunity to weigh in on this. So council members?
Just quickly confirming that the original Senate bill moved HISC to Department of Agriculture. Is that correct?
That's correct. But pursuant to
Right.
House, the draft, once, it's, as I understand, Chelsea, it's consistent with the House draft that it is, HISC stays with DLNR. Yep. So, yeah. Okay,
Chair,
yes, Mary Alice.
I'd like to offer comments.
Yes, okay.
I take the CGAP's letter of information to the council as a very useful guide, and it makes note that the HISC program and the HISC council have done extremely good work under DLNR. And those relationships, I know from experience, when you reorganize and move things around, it takes a while for things to settle and kind of, get going again. And so this may not be, in my personal view, the right time to move the HISC program and council to the Department of Agriculture, as long as the working relationships between the two co-chairs and the, council members remain productive and supportive of the work that's being done. That's just my thoughts.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair.
Chelsea.
I want to echo what Mary Alice just said, but also offer the Department of Health, as in its relationship with the environment,
Mhm.
kind of sits like I think HISC does,
Mhm.
in that each and every one of our laws, our environmental laws, is based on public health.
Yeah.
Yet,
Mhm.
people forget that environment is really
Right.
public health. And so where you sit in your department, sometimes you need to have someone who can remind people of your mission, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're in DLNR, people may think because of relationships in the HISC, that it is more of a conservation commission, yet it's not. It has agriculture as well. So in that respect, I think the mission of whoever is sitting at the deputy level within Department of Ag, should it move, or whoever is the section or division chief or representing the HISC, has to remember that this commission is a body of all entities, and that we should take the mana'o of all of us, right? And moving forward, finding that place for our mission. And so I'm thinking, and also Department of Ag has so much on its plate right now. I mean, so much. And that if Department of Ag takes the HISC at this moment, it still needs to have, it has to go through a reorg to add the deputy, to add the commission and all of that. Perhaps we should do if it's the will, a transition period. In other words, if the legislature in its wisdom wants to move it, maybe we provide for them like a transition period, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it is, so that we, the commission, can get the HISC in the shape in which we view it to be as it transitions to ag. That's kind of my thoughts on this.
No, thank you very much. Dexter?
From DOT, I think we also feel similar, as was mentioned. Keeping it at DLNR doesn't mean that, and actually it's explicitly said, I think, that it doesn't mean that both entities don't work together, right? The Deputy Biosecurity may still have the responsibility and be that point of spear, I think, is one of the terms I keep hearing at the ledge. But HISC is one of the partners that kind of encompasses a bunch of partners that I think the deputy will be really relying on and building strong relationships with.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Thank you. Dean, would you like to weigh in?
I have no real comments on this.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Chair Hurd, do you want to weigh in?
For
All the
me-
comments,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
For me, as long as the work gets done, we all work together. We are few people here and we have major problems to deal with. It doesn't matter where they are administered from, as long as they stay focused on the mission, right?
thank you.
It's very common sense.
Yeah, so as co-chair, you listen to all the comments from all the members. I think if you read the testimony for both DLNR and DOA, you'll see that we agree with all that. We both say, the will of the legislature and their wisdom. We agree that the phrase Dexter was looking for is tip of the spear, right? There has to be one direction. And we agree that it should be the Department of Agriculture. And to the point that Deputy Director made, we have a lot on our plate now, especially with the federal situation that's going on. It's a daily chaotic announcement. However, I think that eventually I'll take Deputy Director Ho's words. The transition period should be taken into account to allow for, DLNR and DOA to prepare. If you were to move HISC over, keeping it at DLNR is, Copa said, right? Everything is normal. But moving it over to DOA, we would need some time. We don't have the space, equipment, vehicles. We would have to transition it over for the same purpose: control and mitigation, prevention of invasives. I think what Mary Alice said is very important as well, is that even if we stay as we are, which is a fine, result of the legislative actions, we need to work together cooperative. We have to have our testimonies and our mission statement reflect the actions that we take. That is very important. We can't say one thing and then do another, because that is very disruptive and doesn't get our mission done. So in that spirit, I'm going to say that, if we need to take a recess and talk about it, I think we should hash that out within the voting members. But I leave it to the voting members to decide if further discussion needs to take place as to how we move forward with the testimony, aligning with our actions.
Okay. So well, before I address Chair Hurd's comments about, because I am gathering that it may be alluding to whether we may have to go into executive session to discuss some of, I think, what Chair Hurd just talked about. I do want to address, since all of us on the council is making a comment, DLNR's position is, I think we need to do some structural changes in the sense that HISC is administratively attached to DLNR. Although there is a public perception that HISC is tied to DOFA. And I mean, and they do, there is no doubt, there's a lot of work together. So what we're proposing to do is to give HISC its own LNR number, ID number. So like what we do for Mauna Kea, Ahamoku, as well as Kirk. They have their own ID number. They go seek their own funding, but they are a separate entity, but they fall under DLNR. So that's one structural change we're trying to make. I also recognize we probably have to give, and that's us as a council, to provide HISC greater capacity. So it's only, right now, it's just Chelsea. Oops, are we okay? It still says live.
It might have been the YouTube. Oh, I guess the YouTube is still going.
Okay, I think that's the important part.
Yeah, you
YouTube.
can keep going.
So we're trying to do something structurally, and it may be, have HISC go and apply for, their own funding to develop their own internal capacity. With respect to the transition, I think that's been the position that DLNR has taken too, that if that is the will of the legislature for all biosecurity to fall under DOA, that is their decision to make. However, and I have some familiarity with the biosecurity plan. The biosecurity plan was designed to acknowledge that there are many different agencies, DLNR, UH, DOA, Department of Health, that we are all working on different components of biosecurity, pre-border, border, once they're established, post-border. And it kind of goes back to the comment that Kathy Holm made about we all have different missions, but we have something in common. It is biosecurity and how do we manage invasive species. So, while I am giving, from DLNR perspective, deference that this is a policy decision by the legislature. I also believe that there is something valuable in DLNR maintaining, now whether some form of HISC transfers over to biosecurity, but we do have different missions. So for me at DLNR, my mission is priority. I would assume if everything falls under DOA, DOA's priorities are going to be DOA's. And even if we move all of biosecurity. So for me, well, again, I say policy, that's directed by the legislature, and we will implement their policy. But there is something very valuable about still providing UH, their own sources, DLNR, our sources, even having Department of Health has their own kuleana. That I think that is the spirit of, this interagency coordination. And that's what HISC is supposed to do. So we are trying to do whatever we can through, again, at DLNR to make them more independent. But I do believe there needs to be greater thought about, do we fully transition all of, biosecurity over to DOA, or does DLNR continue to retain some authority? Because we have issues between invasive corals, and we've got issues with ungulates up at the forest that are not necessarily all in alignment with DOA's mission. And I would not expect DOA to compromise their mission, but that our priorities would be slightly
Yeah,
different.
but may I add something?
Yeah.
And that's why the title of biosecurity, I think, was the vision of both Senate Bill 1100 and House Bill 427, is they recognized that it had to be an interagency effort. As everybody on this council understands, it has to be interagency. I'm going to use the recent H5N1 outbreak, where we said, hey, it was found in a wastewater. Well, that's DOH. Hey, it was found in a backyard flock. That's DOA. And guess what? It's in the migratory birds. That's
Right.
DLNR. So how do we address a problem when the jurisdictions are so clear, right?
Mhm.
Well, what we do is we have a HISC and we get together and we talk about it, we solve our problems interagency wise. Now, whether or not that's under a biosecurity title, under the DOA or under, or whether HISC stays with DLNR, I think the situation is however we fix the problem, we address the problem, it has to be collaborative.
Oh, yeah.
It
No.
has to be collaborative. There's not a problem that sits in health. I mean, that's why the ports are DOT, DOA, DOH. Because all those vectors that come in are biosecurity. Akamai arrivals, passengers are vectors, for goodness sakes, right?
Mhm.
So it's a bigger problem. I shouldn't say problem. It's a bigger challenge to control and mitigate than just HISC or just DOA or just, and that's what we do at the HISC. We get together and we talk about it. So however the legislature decides to handle it, I think you hit the nail on the head, Chair. It's money. We need to
Well,
get money to.
I don't know if I said
HISC.
money.
You said funding. You said
Well,
LNR.
but I said policy. That's their call to make. That's a
Okay, well, let me
policy
say
call.
money. Let me say money.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
have their own LNR, then they can pursue the funding on their
Oh,
own.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
right?
no, you're right
And
with
there's no
that.
carve out to any other agency. You get $1, you get $1. And I think that speaks volumes, it's like, I think that would be it. Wherever it's housed, it's the interagency, and we have to act appropriately. We have to be supportive, not point fingers. I think that's a very good way to go for it.
So I think hearing from all of the council members, I did want to open it to the public, but I did want to give you an opportunity because you were saying you thought, I mean, you were sort of suggesting that you wanted to perhaps meet with the council members to discuss.
I still want to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to,
Entertain a motion.
well, I need the deputy AG to weigh in on this.
Yeah.
So could we call Danica?
Yes. Okay.
And I
And I'm
think maybe, oh
perfectly
yeah,
happy to put it on another agenda item,
or,
but
so maybe what I'm gonna do is, because we still have a quorum.
oh, good.
Would you like to talk to our deputy AG and then discuss this with her?
Can I
and-
do that?
Yeah, you can go outside because we still have quorum. And then,
Chair,
or you want to take a
I move
recess?
that we go into executive session per the requirements of chapter
92.4 dash,
5,
yeah,
subsection A, subsection 4, to discuss the powers, duties, and legal role of the council in
Oh,
regard to a discussion about a transfer of roles and responsibilities and resources between departments.
okay, worded that way, I think we can,
She's on her way.
yeah, I think worded that way, we can go into executive session. So I have a motion has been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been moved and seconded to go into executive session to confer with our Deputy Attorney General. So we're going to be in recess and then we'll come back.